Thank you for tuning in to No Sudden Moves Radio. And remember, stay on the proven path so you don't risk falling behind. Here at Business Legends, we don't overthink it. Look around and see what everyone else is doing. If it's working for them, it will work for you.
Welcome to Wait It Out, where we believe there's no reason to act now. The opportunity will still be there when the timing is better.
The age of disruption isn't coming, it's here. And the boldest move isn't following the crowd, it's following your why. I'm Patrick Ledden, and you're listening to Disruption Lab. Welcome to Disruption Lab, where we explore ideas and mindsets and basically moves that will help drive real change in your life and in your organization. My name is Patrick Ledden. I have the honor of being the host on this particular podcast, and my guest today is Jeff Burningham. He's a serial entrepreneur, an investor, and a disruptor with a bold mission. He really wants to help shape the future by helping all of us bet on people. Yep, I said bet on people. Jeff's built and sold tech companies, run for governor, taught university classes, and now he's turned his attention to something deeply human. His new book, which I love the title, The Last Book Written by a Human, is both a challenge and a call to action. In fact, he's urging us not to sleepwalk into a future defined solely by algorithms, instead leaning into creativity, imagination, meaning, and so much more. Jeff's here today to talk about disruption and leadership, and I'm so excited to have him join me for a conversation today. Jeff, welcome to Disruption Lab.
Thanks for having me, Patrick. It's great to be with you.
It's great to be with you. I tell the audience sometimes when we're getting ready for a podcast, I'll chat with the guest for a while, and you hit the nail on the head. You said, I think this is going to be a lot of fun. And
That's
I agree.
right.
I think this is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to talk about some stuff that's really important to people, because everywhere we turn, we hear people talking about these disruptions going on, obviously. But specifically, there's a lot of concern, like, are we losing our humanity in the process? So I really am excited to explore that a bit with you. Before we get into it too far, would you mind telling a little bit about your journey, Jeff, and how you ended up being where you are today with all these amazing titles of entrepreneur and, investor and disruptor? Tell us a little bit about your journey.
Oh, well, that's too kind, Patrick. I appreciate that. Maybe we need to make disruption fun because disruption is life, right? Yeah. As we know, change is the only constant, and that means disruption. And I think my career path kind of shows that. I started a tech company as an undergrad at university. I sold it to a NASDAQ listed firm in my late 20s, pivoted into real estate private equity during the Great Recession. So that's the other thing about disruption. Within disruption, it can be scary, it's unsteady, but there's always opportunity within disruption. There's opportunity for growth. And so we built a large real estate private equity firm. It's called Peak Capital Partners during the Great Recession. It was scary at first. There were a couple very lean years. I remember coming into the office, the headlines were Lehman Brothers is failing, AIG is going under. But when we turned it around quite significantly, and we own over $5 billion of real estate assets. From there, I started a venture fund, the first venture fund along the Silicon Slopes here in beautiful Utah, which is my home state, and loved venture capital, did that, then lost my mind, disrupted myself again, I guess you could say, and decided to run for governor during 2020. And the most critical months of the campaign, this is true, were March, April, May, and June of 2020. Right when COVID hit the United States. Talk about disruption. I went from meeting thousands of people a day over, 8 to 12 events daily to being confined right here to this little home office and talking into the back of my iPhone only for the first month or two. It took us a month or two to remember or to figure out Zoom. If you recall, or for it, and so I was talking to the back of my iPhone with no one. So lost that election. I was running against two very well-known politicians, In any market, when there is a lot of disruption, there's a flight to safety. So one of those two well-known politicians won, which was heartbreaking, but that gave me another chance, I guess, to disrupt myself. Into the summer of 2020, I dove back into the venture capital work that I had done. I'd been running for governor for 18 months or so and started doing a lot of research, catching up on the technology. And of course, the technology that caught my attention most was AI. And that was interesting for investment purposes, of course. But what became much more interesting right away to me were the spiritual implications of AI for humanity. And so I found myself the last 4 or 5 years kind of being the chairman of all my companies, which basically means if there's a big decision to be made, I'll weigh in, or I just try to help the team. And I've had time and space for the first time in my life. And I decided to write this book. Like you said, the last book written by a human. It's kind of come through me. It's been a disruptive process in and of itself. And so now I'm an author. So that's kind of my quick, short trajectory. I taught, like you said, at the local university here. I was an adjunct professor of entrepreneurship, which I loved. And so it's been a fun ride.
Man, you've had an amazing ride. It's an amazing ride. And I loved it because I knew when I first met you, I was like, oh, this guy's a great person for the podcast because it is disruption after disruption after disruption. And yeah, how do you run for office when you can't do the kiss babies and shake hands, right?
Yeah,
All that type
exactly.
of things. I mean, that retail politics starts to change very quickly. So let's start back at the beginning. When you were talking about you starting the business coming out of school, or you said you started in school, right? So you're,
Yeah, yeah. The
when I
summer
taught,
before my senior year. Yeah.
the last 11 years I taught at Vanderbilt as a full-time professor there, and the students always try to think about like this next business idea and they're going to launch it,
Yeah.
and to some degree there's a law of numbers, right? They think they could be
Yeah.
the one that hits because
Yeah.
somebody's going to hit, but you were somebody who actually hit. So what was that like, even at that age? Like, everybody's probably going through very similar steps career wise. I would imagine most of the students across the campus, as far as like putting out resumes and going out for interviews and things like that. But you're building something literally from your apartment or dorm room or wherever you were building it from. I mean,
Yeah.
what was just that like, kind of being in one spot and watching other people move in different directions?
Yeah, it's always unsettling when you're not following the herd, let's say, or when you're not taking the traditional route. I think in anything in life, it can be a little unsettling. And I think that, like we said, change is constant, disruption is all around us. And so we're faced every day. We can take the road most often traveled or the road less traveled. That's what I felt like I was taking as an undergrad. I actually ran the management consulting club with one of my now business partners at Peak. And so I was flying around the country interviewing for with Bain and McKinsey and other consulting firms and running my startup and finishing school. This is my senior year at BYU. And I decided a couple months into the interview process, I am just a lot more passionate about my startup, even though there was a lot less certainty, even though I hadn't been paid a dime. We had a small team by then. I'm good, maybe 10 employees that we were paying, but my co-founder and I had not been paid a penny. Even though it was uncertain the outcome, I decided to jump in with my startup. And maybe that's kind of been a theme in my life, is that even when the outcome is uncertain, you follow your gut, you follow your heart. And I often choose maybe the road less traveled. I don't know exactly why that is, but that just seems to be kind of baked into my DNA. So it was a little scary, like it always was, but it worked out. I graduated like the end of April 2001. So you know what was coming around the corner, September 11th. But for the first time, my partner and I took a couple $1,000s, I think we're able to, from the business, May of 2001. The year or the month after I graduated. My wife was a second grade school teacher, Sally. So we were she was making, I think her starting salary was $24,000 a year. Not a lot, but we had enough. It was just us, and so like I said, it was a fun ride, but an uncertain ride for sure.
Yeah, as you were saying that, you even said it. Well, maybe it's a theme to my life, but I jotted down a couple things. You're like, I was passionate about this, which we
Yeah.
can tap on, touch about on that. But you also said this uncertain piece, and one thing that when Patterson and I were writing the Disrupt Everything book, we went out and studied these positive disruptors. We started looking for what were some of their patterns in behavior, what were some things that we could call out that we'd say like these are some critical things that they would do, and not that everybody had every behavior. In fact, that's why teams are so great sometimes, and we complement each other. But there were people that had things like they saw needs in the world and they were touched by them. They cared about them. Not only just touched
Hmm.
by them, but they were actually willing to step into the breach and kind of close it a little bit. Another thing was that they were really good at trusting their instincts. Not all of them, not everybody has great instincts worth trusting, but those who did know they could lean into a little bit. So I guess from your perspective, this uncertainty component, which I think weaves through much of what you've done. You're running for election for an office. There's no guarantee how it's going to turn out, right?
Yeah.
And then, the curveball of trying to do it during COVID, that's a whole nother level of disruption everybody had to deal with. But where do you think this ability to kind of navigate through uncertainty comes from in you? And have you refined it or improved it over time? Or do you feel like, hey, it's just like you got it or you don't?
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think some people are born with more of a proclivity towards it, I would assume, but I think it's definitely been refined in my life. And I think it's what you said a minute ago. It's trusting those gut instincts. It's kind of pattern recognition that, oh, yeah, this is something that I see. This is an opportunity. This is something I'm meant to do. This is a problem I can solve or I can help with. I can help humanity with this. It's almost a recollection or a remembrance of maybe something previous, something that is inside of us that calls us forward to, I would say, our heroic journey. I think that we're all individually on a hero's journey. I think we're also collectively, which is what the book's about, on this hero's journey, and this collective heroic journey. And so I think it's pattern recognition and being able to know I'm going to feel uncertainty. It's going to feel a little uneasy in my body. There is risk at hand, but this is something I'm called to do. And then with that, sharing the vision to rally a team around you to help you do that. The best teams most often win. It's life is about teamwork. I mean, we do nothing alone, really, nothing of consequence. And so it's about having a vision that you can share with a team, rallying the team around you, and then this stick-to-itiveness. I'd have to credit my parents. I grew up in a very conservative home. I had a very religious background that has shifted a little bit for me over the last decade. But I grew up very strong LDS or Mormon, and I think that was an awesome framework or foundation for a life of kind of belief, a life of faith, a life of believing in yourself and chasing your dreams. And so I think a lot of that was baked into my background, but I've certainly, I think, gotten better at it. I've gotten better at it through the ups and the downs. And like I said, I think a lot of it is pattern recognition and then being able to kind of steady the ship when things don't go as are planned, because they never do. When I was a venture capitalist and I'd have entrepreneurs come and see me every day, 5 to 10. And the only thing I knew about the business they were pitching me, the model, the pitch they were giving me, the only thing I knew about it for certain is that it was wrong. I just didn't know how it was wrong. And so I was investing really in people and in founders that could pivot wisely, roll with the punches, and be able to ride the waves, to catch a wave and surf it as long and beautifully as possible. So
Yeah, you often hear people say like you don't bet on the horse, you bet on the jockey type of thing.
yeah,
I mean, I'd
yeah.
imagine when people are standing in front of you, pitching their ideas and looking for support, financial or otherwise, when you're kind of looking at this individual saying, is this person have it in them? Are they going to do it? Or maybe they
Yeah.
have them in there, but maybe we all have it to some degree in us, but are they willing to bring it out? In fact, I was talking, that reminds me, I was talking to somebody the other day and they asked me the question, like, what we talk about positive disruptors. And they're like, what's the opposite of a positive disruptor? I said, well, I think that one level you could say, well, it's a negative disruptor, right? That seems to be opposite of something. And we all know negative disruptors. They come in and they blow the meeting up just to blow the meeting up. They're curmudgeons, they're difficult, whatever. And we certainly know people like that. But I really
Yeah.
think that the opposite of what allows someone to be a positive disruptor, or the opposite choice that you make, is instead of like running toward disruption, regardless of how you know it's exactly going to play out, what you do is you kind of relentlessly pursue comfort.
Yeah.
And as I hear you talk, I mean, you've had lots of successes. There were probably places where you could have taken a different ramp, an off
Yeah.
ramp at some point. What allows you to keep kind of, not to just go, okay, I'm just going to kick back and call it. I mean, what keeps you in the fight all the time?
I think that's a good summation, what you just said. I talk about in the book, I kind of start my book out with me kind of climbing what I call this little mountain of success, my little mountain of success. And my story is analogous to everyone's story. We're all kind of climbing our way up. And look, I got there. I arrived. Let me just tell you, Patrick, I got to the top of my little mountain, and guess what was there? I say in the book, nothing but a cold, howling wind.
Hmm.
Void. There's nothing there. There's nothing outside of us that we're really chasing as humans, in my opinion. We think we are, but we're not. What we're really looking for is inside of us. It's already inside of us. So once you get to the top, once you climb your little mountain, and this is the voyage that most of us are on, once you get up there and realize, oh, this didn't solve all my problems. Oh, I feel the same as I did before. I'm still down. I still have hard days. The only place to go is inside, and to go back down the mountain, to pick up the pieces of a little broken life. Because usually while you're climbing, you're breaking yourself. You're sacrificing little parts of yourself, maybe. You're in the thick of thin things. Your priorities are out of whack. And so you go back and pick up the pieces and try to reconstruct it in a more beautiful way. So why do I continue on? Why am I not at my beach house right now, which I could be? Why am I not golfing or whatever, which I could be? Whatever the so-called all the cool things are. Because I know in the end, those things are empty and hollow. That doesn't mean I love our lake place and our beach place. I love golfing once in a while. But that's not really what it's about. What it's about, I think, is being of service to humanity in your own unique and special way. I mean, all of us have gifts, all of us are here for a reason. I think it's in unlocking those gifts that we find our hero's journey. By the way, the hero's journey is one of sacrifice, it's one of, if I may say, kind of laying your life down for your friends. So instead of spending all your time at the beach when you could, you dive back in and maybe you write this very vulnerable, scary book, which is what I've done. Maybe you start a podcast, maybe you start another business, maybe you start a nonprofit. Whatever you do, you're back in the game using your talents to kind of bless humanity. I think that that's what it's about. And in the end, those more kind of selfish endeavors are hollow. And so that's why I continue on, and why I will kind of continue on forever. Again, that doesn't mean that there's not place and times for that. There is, but that I don't think that should be the main focus.
Yeah, as you were saying that, I was thinking, I guess like most of us would do, right? You're listening to Jeff talk and you're thinking it through your own lens, your own story,
Yeah,
right?
I hope
And
so.
and and
Yeah.
I and I would have some similar similarities to you, in that I spent my 20s in the Army, so I did like the Army Ranger thing, jumping out of planes for a while, doing all that. And
Cool.
then from April of 2001 until the spring of 2012, I was building a business, and we ended up selling it in 2012. And along that journey, there was climbing my own mountain, if you will. I had certain things that I thought was, if I get these things, I've made it, right?
Yeah.
So I grew up on the south side of Chicago. There were seven of us. The house was like 1,100 square feet. It wasn't a big house, right? So,
Yeah.
so, so growing up in that thing, I think, oh, like I'll make it by having a big house, right? So
Yeah.
we end up with this big, massive house. There's six bathrooms and there's only four people living in the place, type of thing. It's like,
Yeah.
and at some point, it's like, why do I have all this house? Like, who's ever going to use this? And so when we sold our business, for me, it was a reset to go back and teach at the university for the next 11 years or so. But I think, and this is what I'd love to have your thoughts on this. I think that I still feel like I'm scaling another mountain in a way, but maybe I'm just smarter about recognizing like what the summit actually should look like or would look like, or who comes on the journey with me, or what I'm not willing to
Yeah.
sacrifice along the way, because you always have to sacrifice. I do a fair amount of actual mountaineering, and I
Yeah.
know that at some points, you're not carrying that full pack to the top. You're dropping some stuff, and in my case, there were some relationships that almost got dropped getting to the top of this thing, right? So I'm just
Yeah.
curious. I mean, do you see it like now? Is that even not the right analogy to use anymore? I mean, what do you think?
Well, let me ask you this, Patrick. Does that scaling, does that mountain, does that feel external or more internal?
Um, Yeah, it's a great question. I would imagine, and I'm not just saying it's because
I'm
you
asking
asked.
for
Yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
How does
I'm not,
it feel? Like
yeah,
what is
and,
it?
and I'm just thinking like, well, I should say it's all internal because Jeff is talking about that. But that
No,
I'm
no,
thinking about
no.
no, no, but no, but I'm thinking about myself. I think, you know, if we were to say external would be like what other people see in it or validate for you or things like
Yeah,
that.
like is it for external reasons? Is it to get to the top, to have the big house, to have people applaud you, to be famous? I'm making stuff
No,
up.
no, yeah, yeah,
Or does it feel, or why is it? Or does it feel like internally mission driven? I'm
yeah,
just
yeah, yeah.
asking.
I got you 100%. Yeah. So I jokingly say now that, but I guess it's not a joke. It's how I feel. I spent my 20s in the army. I spent my 30s into early 40s building and running a business. Spent my 40s to mid 50s now teaching students, and now I'm going to go change the world. And when I think about it that way, it's like it's not so I'll be on Good Morning America. And it's,
Yeah.
right, it's not to create a podcast that folks, it really is to say, okay, I think I've learned some things that will help other people live their good lives. In fact, the
Yeah.
opening question we ask in our book is, are you living a good life? And the rest of
Yeah.
the conversation is about how to do that. So I would say, without being, I mean, I'm not 100% altruistic, but I stretch. But
Yeah.
I think, yeah, my purpose, my mission is to impact folks. It's more of an internal journey about how do I use my resources and hopefully talents to do that. And in the process, be able to answer the question at the end. Yeah, I lived a good life, and it wasn't because I had a house with 6 bathrooms.
No,
No, no,
it
yeah,
was
no,
because you used your gifts to serve humanity, to
yeah,
serve your
yeah,
fellow
yeah.
man.
Not to cast aspersions. If you have 6 bathrooms, folks, hey, good for you. If you love it,
I have 6 bathrooms, I think. I don't know. I
yeah.
haven't
So
counted. So
you know what I'm saying though, like that.
yeah,
So yeah, I
yeah.
say it's much more of a journey inward. So when you were, I don't know you, but when you're writing something, sometimes you're thinking like, hey, how are people gonna take this? You mentioned you're more
Mm,
vulnerable in this book, or you're being vulnerable in this
yeah.
book. Putting yourself, how are they gonna respond to that, like that type of stuff. But also, what do you hope they do with it? So talk us through a little bit because the book's. I think a lot of people are going to want to pick this up. I think like I said, the headline is so drawing, the title, written by a human, because I think we feel like we're losing this sense of humanity through all this. So just riff, Jeff. Just talk to us a little about
Well,
what you people
gosh,
what.
I have some thoughts on our previous topic, but we can go here too if we want.
Go any way you want. This is called disruption. You could disrupt it.
Well, talk about the ultimate disruption, AI.
Yeah.
Welcome to the world of intelligent machines. And the question is, or the thesis of the book is, as our machines become more intelligent, we as humans must become more wise.
Mm.
And to tie the kind of two last thoughts together, maybe, one of the core ideas of this book is doing versus being. See, when I was climbing my little mountain, and you've probably done it better than I did, Patrick, and I did nothing
I would not make.
you
I would not make that assumption whatsoever.
when I was addicted to doing when I was climbing my mountain. I mean, there was a time in my life where I was running a multi-billion dollar private equity firm, a several $100 million venture capital fund, on 20 boards, nonprofit and for profit, a father of four, a bishop in my church, which is like a lay leader for 500 for a congregation of 500 or so members. And then I decided to get an MBA on nights and weekends on top of that. And sorry, let me just say, what in the hell was I thinking? I'll tell you what I know what I was thinking. There's always something more that you can do. And if you do more, you can be more.
Mm-hmm.
And let me just say, I don't know if this is a PG rated. That's BS. I want to say it. So in its artificiality and in AI's ability to do really more than AI is going to be able to do so much more than you and I can, Patrick, and in so much a better way in the not too distant future. It calls humanity back to our being. We're human beings, not human doings. I had become a drone in the system, a cog in a much bigger machine that wasn't even aware of. Even though I was running my own companies and I'm climbing this ladder of success and blah, 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 I was addicted to doing. And while we will always do something as we're alive, I mean, we're podcasting now, we have other things to do. That will always be a part of existence. We have forgotten how to be. So AI can and or will remind us as humans how to be and the miracle that that being is. Because there is, I'm going to say, quote unquote, technology inside of us, Patrick, that no machine can replicate, at least now, maybe ever, or hopefully ever. But a machine can never feel empathy. Even no matter how sweet ChatGPT is talking to you, I don't think it's feeling empathy, at least yet. And we can leave that question on the table for later, for another podcast maybe. But it doesn't feel empathy. It doesn't know, Patrick, the way you and I do, the feeling of loss, the heartbreak of loss, of rejection. It also doesn't know love. It doesn't know human connection and intimacy. These are the superpowers that we have as human beings that we have sidelined, forgotten, or taken for granted. I talk about in the book, AI to me is a cosmic mirror. It is right now, it is simply a reflection of us, of humanity. And a mirror can be a scary and powerful thing. It's scary for middle-aged guys like you and I to look in the mirror every morning and be like, what in the heck is happening to me?
Who is that person?
Who is that? It's going to be scary. It is scary right now, and it will continue to be scary here for a time for humanity to look into this cosmic reflection and realize what we've become. To realize the dysfunction, the greed, the division, which, by the way, this division is all made up. There is no division. It's artificial. And in that artificiality, it will reflect that back to us. And then it's up to us as humans what to do with this powerful tool. It's up to us to decide how we might change, how we will lean into being and let go of our addiction to doing and count the gifts of being, like I enumerated before. So it could be the most glorious thing to ever happen to us. It also could be our destruction, Patrick. Like if we dump AI, the power of AI, onto the division that we have in our world right now, I'm really scared for the future of my children, my future grandchildren, and that's why I wrote the book. Go ahead.
No, I was just thinking about, and I hear you on that part as well. There's a lot of unknowns in here that, to some degree, we feel like we don't have control. We don't, and that's always scary. And just the scale is interesting about this one. But as you were saying that, I was just thinking about, like, throughout time, technology has freed up our time to do other things, right? So I don't have to walk my clothes down to the river. I can throw it in the machine down there and it's going to wash it. And I'm sure there's some degree of analysis I could do that say, okay, for every minute I've saved over the course of the time that humanity's been on this planet, how am I using that time? And I would imagine that my ancestors would be a little disappointed in the way I use some of that time.
Yeah.
In regard to, you get all this free time and you're not using it to connect with people. You're not using it to get to know yourself better. You're not using it always to make a difference in the world. You use it to feed an addiction by scrolling or whatever it might be. So give us some hope, man. What could we do? Like, okay, if I was to say to you, okay, we're going down this path right now and AI is going to change things, it will most likely give us a little bit more flexibility to how we use our time going forward, perhaps, because it will take some tasks that would take us a long time to do. It might be able to give us the answer pretty quickly or whatever it might be. The question is, what do we do with that extra time? How do we use it effectively? How do we use it to really be humans and do all those things that at this point, like you said, are truly being, unique to us and also about being as a human?
Well, I mean, that's one of the great conundrums of AI. In modern life, as technology makes our life easier, what we do is continue to just fill it up with more work or technology, or I'll say junk food. I mean,
Hmm.
that's what we generally do.
Yep.
It's up to us to evolve, Patrick. I personally believe that one of the fundamental purposes of existence, maybe the main fundamental purpose, is to wake up, to remember who we really are and what reality really is. And I think AI can enable us or help us to do that. Um, and we can lean into that. And again, I'll bring up, we can lean into our individual hero's journey and the collective heroic journey that I think we're actually on together, or we can continue to feed the algorithm. Watch Netflix all day. Put in comments that maybe we would never say in person, but it's easy to say online behind whatever. Um, it's up to us to choose. We need to take radical responsibility for number one, the reflection we see in the cosmic mirror of AI and where we go from here. It's welcome to adulting, quote unquote, Patrick.
Yeah.
It's time to grow up. I'm talking generally for humanity. It's time to grow up.
No, you're talking to
And
me.
it's
Yeah.
well, you look so young, man.
Yeah,
That's
that's it,
good.
right? Yeah,
It's time to grow up. It's time to wake up, which I think is the fundamental, I'm going to say, quote unquote, game that we're actually playing. We're trying to remember who we really are and what reality really is and come back to this, I'll say, divine unity that actually really unites us as humans.
I don't
It's
know
not
if
division.
I don't know if we.
It's unity.
I'm just
Go
trying to
ahead.
think. One of the challenges I think we might have, and I feel like you and I are just sitting over having a cup of coffee, just talking about this, which is awesome. But
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
like you said the game we're playing is like the game we play right now, or the game I've played at times, or is one that's easily counted, right? I can look at my bank account. I can look
Yeah.
at the number of
That's the old
employees.
game, Patrick. That's the old
I
game.
can look. So tell me, how do I play the game? And I think I'm making some pretty good moves in the game myself. But
Yeah.
how do I want? So when I say me, I'm talking about all of us too. But how do we play that game within? You mentioned spirituality earlier. How do we play this new game? How do we frame it in a way that might cause us to start thinking and acting a little differently?
I love that. Let me start with the general concept and then go to more specifics. The general concept, one of the main ideas in my book is the old game versus the new game. The old game is what has been modeled for us. I grew up in the Western US in a very conservative family. I'm the oldest of six. Everything was about capitalism, um, Christian values, and winning. I'm speaking generally. That was the old game, the old paradigm of success where, money was the motivator, where maybe power or control was a motivator, and our base desires ruled the day. We get to now shift, I think, Patrick, if we choose, to a new game, which again is a lot less external focused. It's more internal focused. So, in this new game, the currency is karma, not cash. The motivation is love, not power or control. And the real power comes from authenticity, being our true piece of the puzzle, being our unique best self, bringing the gifts that we have to bless humanity, like we were talking about at the beginning of this podcast. So, how do we do that? Number one, and I know this is counterintuitive, but like most, uh, a lot of brilliant ideas, they're paradoxes. But number one, we need to slow down. So, number one, slow down. Number two, go inside, not external focused, internal focused. And once that's feels good, we can bring the best of ourselves to the rest of the world. From there, and the end of our book, the book follows a typical disruption cycle in technology, which is disruption is the first section, reflection is the second, transformation, and then evolution. I saw this cycle repeated in the technology companies that I've invested in and built. And that's also our personal kind of spiritual awakening cycle, we get to bring that to reform our institutions. So I end the book talking about reforming religion, about conscious capitalism, and about what I call a vote for humanity, which is political division in the modern age. And so it's first an internal game, and then that internal is brought to the collective so that we can reform and break subconscious patterns that we've been in forever that will serve humanity better. The point of AI is to help us flourish, or that should be our focus. AI is happening. Like, we can't stop it. It may be, maybe it would be best to pull the plug, so to speak, but that's not going to happen. That's not an option. So if AI is coming, we should bring the best of humanity to it so that it helps more of us flourish, not leads to more destruction, but leads to more flourishing.
When you think about the reader for the book, because you talk about playing the new game, and I wrote down for myself, and I'm not trying to be cynical. I'm curious.
Yeah.
Like, is this like, oh, this is the new game that you're positioning? Is it easier played for somebody who's kind of quote unquote won in the old game? So they go,
Yeah.
okay, they have the time, they have the resources, they could choose to make that, but I'm just trying to make ends meet and make a mortgage payment. Or is it a matter of like, no, everybody could play the game, a different game here, so the book's valuable to everybody. And is it actually in some ways, I don't want to say easier, but almost easier for somebody who's jumping in and starting playing the new game than somebody who's been playing that old game for a while?
Yeah, I mean, those are great questions. And I think it's good to be cynical about this. And I think it's very easy to look at my privilege and to say it's easier now. And that might be the case. That might be true. I've kind of, like I said, and I start the book with my kind of climb to the top of the mountain. And you could argue that it's easier for someone like that to play the new game. It might also be harder because
Yeah.
of that addiction to doing, that addiction to success, to external validation. This book is, I kind of try to share the worst of myself in this book. Like, I kind of shared my deepest, darkest secrets. This isn't a vanity book. I tried to share who I really am, the faults that I have, the mistakes I've made. And so, it's a really good question. I'm not sure I'm going to answer. It might be easier for someone who's kind of quote unquote won the old game. But let me just say that whether you're struggling to make ends meet or whether you're have 6 bathrooms, we'll say,
Yeah.
playing the new game is not easy for any of us, but it's possible. It's possible because it's about who we are inside. It doesn't matter if you're the CEO or the president of some country, or like I said, if you're the janitor or whatever that might be. The new game is about who you are inside and how you do your work, whatever that work is. All this work is important. But the most important work we have to do is, in my opinion, is to, like I said, wake up, come back together as humanity, understand our divine unity, that there's always more that unites us than divides us, and then to lean into that hard work. So that's hard work, I think, for every single person on the earth. And but it's work that I think we're called to do in 2025. It's the work that AI is calling us to do. So whether you're the CEO on top of the mountain or whether you're trying to make ends meet, in one sense, it doesn't really matter. This is the work in front of us. This is the work that we're called to do. And I think we can do it together. I propose ideas and ways in the book of how we can do this together. But it's not going to be it's not going to be easy. This isn't, I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but no matter the outcome, Patrick, some things are worth our very best efforts, no matter the outcome. And I think this is one of those things.
No, I absolutely agree. Yeah, there are things that are worth our best efforts. There's also situations where we see them, even the most strained geopolitical issues or whatever we see, and it's like it doesn't have to be that way,
No.
right? Just because we drew the lines the way we drew them, and because we think this group has to hate this group, or that group has to hate this group, or this group always is going to behave a certain way, or whatever it is, The reality is it comes down to individuals, and
Yep.
we all have choice. We could all do different things, and literally we literally could as humanity wake up tomorrow and choose to do something different, which I think is
Amen.
really inspiring. Well, Jeff, thanks so much for joining us today. I love the conversation. I encourage people, pick up the book. It comes out in July. So, right, July,
August
actually,
19th.
August 19th, sorry, August
Yep.
19th. So you can pre-order it now, folks, and then pick it up, order it in triplicate for your friends and give it out to other folks too, because it takes all of us in this game to really live like human beings. But really appreciate you, Jeff. Thanks for joining us and really being provocative, helping us to think about the game we're playing, the mountain we're climbing, and ultimately, what we value and what the journey is going to ultimately lead us to. Thank you so much, Jeff.
Thank you, Patrick. Good to be with you.
Folks, that was Jeff Burningham, entrepreneur, thinker, and the author of the powerful new book that we just talked about, the last book written by a human. Again, I encourage you to pick up a copy. If today's conversation made you think a little differently, good. That's the point. Because disruption isn't coming, it's here. And in a world being rewritten by machines, the boldest thing you can do is lean into what makes you human. I'm Dr. Patrick Ludden. That's all I have. Now go make it a great day.